The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a cold, unyielding glow across the open-plan office. Emma sat at her desk, her fingers trembling as they hovered above the keyboard. The email notification had arrived precisely at 9:03 a.m., 3 minutes after she'd settled into her chair with a steaming cup of coffee that now sat forgotten, growing cold beside her. Her heart pounded in her chest like a trapped bird desperate to escape its cage. Across the room, Michael leaned back in his ergonomic chair, feet propped up on his desk, scrolling through his phone with the casual indifference that had become his trademark. He wasn't even trying to hide his smirk as he caught Emma's eye and gave her a wink that felt more like a dagger than a gesture of camaraderie. The promotion announcement had been brief, clinical even, but its impact reverberated through every fiber of Emma's being. For 3 years, she had poured her soul into this company. 3 years of early mornings, late nights, and weekends sacrificed at the altar of professional ambition. She had streamlined processes that had existed in chaos for decades, mentored new hires who now outperformed their senior counterparts, and consistently delivered projects ahead of schedule while maintaining quality that made clients sing their praises. Her performance reviews were filled with glowing remarks, her achievements documented in meticulous detail, all of which seemed to count for nothing against Michael's apparent charm offensive. Emma's stomach churned as she recalled the countless times she had covered for him when he conveniently forgot about deadlines or missed crucial meetings. The extra hours she had put in to ensure his portion of team projects met basic standards, knowing full well that if she didn't, it would reflect poorly on the entire department. And now, here he was, promoted to the position she had worked so hard to earn, while she remained shackled to her current role with no clear path forward. Her hands moved automatically to her temple, massaging away the tension headache that had taken root during the staff meeting where the announcement was made. She could still hear her boss's words echoing in her mind. Michael brings a unique perspective to leadership, he had said, completely oblivious to the irony dripping from his statement. Unique indeed, uniquely capable of delegating his responsibilities to others while taking credit for their work. The weight of injustice pressed down on Emma's shoulders as she stared at her computer screen, the words of congratulatory emails to Michael blurring before her eyes. Her colleagues tapped away at their keyboards, pretending not to notice the storm brewing in her cubicle, though she could feel their sympathetic glances burning into her skin. Some had tried to offer comforting words earlier, but their platitudes had only served to deepen her frustration. Maybe next time, they had said, as if her disappointment could be soothed by empty promises of future opportunities. What stung most was the realization that she had seen this coming. The signs had been there all along, the way Michael always seemed to be present during crucial moments with upper management, strategically positioning himself in photos at company events, his uncanny ability to turn any conversation about work into a discussion about weekend plans with the executives. While she had been focused on actually doing her job, he had been playing the game, and evidently he had won. Emma's mouse hovered over the resignation letter template she had saved months ago, during one of her darker moments of career disillusionment. Back then, she had convinced herself that things would change, that her hard work would eventually be recognized. But today, staring at Michael's triumphant grin across the room, she felt something snap inside her. The carefully constructed walls of her professional patience crumbled, leaving behind a raw, seething determination that she barely recognized in herself. As lunchtime approached, Emma found herself standing outside the building, staring at the city skyline through tear-blurred eyes. The crisp autumn air did little to cool the fire raging within her. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her pocket, messages from friends and family checking in, having heard the news through the company grapevine. Each notification felt like another reminder of her failure, another voice questioning why she hadn't been chosen. She wandered aimlessly through the streets, her feet carrying her to the small park where she often ate her lunch. Today, however, she couldn't bring herself to eat. Instead, she perched on her usual bench, watching children chase each other around the playground while parents looked on with indulgent smiles. The scene should have brought her comfort, but instead, it only highlighted the emptiness growing inside her. At 32, she had achieved everything society deemed important, a stable job, financial security, professional recognition, yet none of it seemed to matter anymore. Her thoughts drifted back to her college days, when she had dreamed of making a real difference in the world. She remembered the late-night conversations with her best friend Sarah, both of them fueled by cheap coffee and bigger dreams. They had talked about starting their own business someday, creating something meaningful that would leave a lasting impact. Those aspirations had gradually faded under the weight of practical considerations and the pressure to follow a traditional career path. A group of young professionals walked past, their animated conversation about startup culture catching her attention. They spoke of innovation without boundaries, of work that truly mattered, of building something from the ground up. Emma watched them disappear around the corner, their energy and enthusiasm lingering in the air long after they were gone. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of that old excitement stir within her, quickly followed by a wave of shame for letting her dreams slip away unnoticed. Back at her desk, Emma stared at the blank document on her screen. The resignation letter template seemed inadequate now, too formal and sterile to capture the turmoil of emotions coursing through her. She opened a new document and began typing, her fingers moving faster than she could think. Words poured out of her, 3 years of dedication, countless hours of sacrifice, the frustration of watching others take credit for her work, the hollow feeling of being passed over for someone who contributed so little. As she wrote, memories surfaced unbidden, the time she stayed up all night to fix a critical error in a project presentation, only to have Michael casually mention it as if it had been his idea, the week she had worked through a fever to meet an impossible deadline while her co-workers enjoyed a team-building retreat, the countless instances where she had swallowed her pride and accepted responsibility for mistakes that weren't hers to bear. Each memory added fuel to the fire burning within her, each word strengthening her resolve. Her writing evolved from a mere resignation letter into something more profound, a declaration of independence, a promise to herself that she deserved better. The cursor blinked mockingly at the end of her last sentence, waiting for her final decision. Outside, the afternoon light began to fade, painting the office walls with warm hues that contrasted sharply with the cold reality of her situation. Emma's phone vibrated again, this time with a message from her boss requesting a meeting first thing tomorrow morning. She stared at the notification, her heart racing anew. Was this an attempt to smooth things over? A belated recognition of her value? Or simply a routine check-in with an employee who had just witnessed a significant organizational change? Whatever the reason, she knew she had reached a crossroads. The document before her represented not just the end of her current job, but potentially the beginning of something entirely new, if she had the courage to sign her name at the bottom. The clock ticked steadily towards 6 o'clock, each second amplifying the weight of her decision. Around her, colleagues began packing up their belongings, exchanging casual goodbyes that felt miles away from Emma's current reality. She barely noticed when Michael sauntered past her desk, whistling tunelessly as he headed toward the elevator banks. His carefree demeanor only deepened her resolve. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled back to the top of the document, reading through her words with newfound clarity. The letter no longer felt like a rash decision born of hurt pride. Rather, it read like a manifesto of self-worth, a declaration that she refused to continue participating in a system that valued appearances over substance. Each paragraph reinforced her conviction that staying would mean betraying everything she believed about fairness, merit, and personal integrity. The office grew quieter as the cleaning staff began their evening rounds, vacuum cleaners humming softly in distant corners. Emma's computer screen cast harsh shadows across her face as she stared at the blinking cursor at the bottom of the page. The final line waited patiently for her signature, a simple act that would irrevocably alter the course of her professional life. Her hand hovered over the mouse, index finger twitching as she contemplated the magnitude of what she was about to do. In that moment of hesitation, memories flooded her mind, not just of her disappointments, but of the countless times she had proven her capabilities. She recalled the satisfied expressions of clients after successful project completions, the genuine gratitude of junior staff members she had mentored, the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had made a tangible difference in her organization. These moments, once overshadowed by Michael's promotion, now shone brightly in her consciousness, reminding her of her true worth. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sarah. Remember those late-night talks about changing the world? Maybe it's time. The words struck a chord deep within her, resonating with the restless energy that had been building throughout the day. Emma glanced around the nearly empty office, realizing that the familiar surroundings that had once represented stability now felt suffocating. The fluorescent lights seemed dimmer, the ergonomic chair less comfortable, the view from her window somehow smaller than she remembered. Her heart began to race as she considered the implications of signing the letter. It wasn't just about leaving a job, it was about embracing uncertainty, about stepping into the unknown with nothing but faith in her abilities and determination to create something better. The fear that had initially paralyzed her transformed into a different kind of energy, a nervous excitement that quickened her pulse and sharpened her focus. The building's HVAC system clicked on, filling the silence with white noise that seemed to amplify her internal dialogue. Emma's gaze flickered between her resignation letter and the empty inboxes of her email accounts, where countless unread messages from recruiters awaited her attention. She had always dismissed them, content in the security of her current position, but now they represented possibilities, doors waiting to be opened, paths yet to be explored. Her hand finally moved, not toward the mouse, but toward the pen she kept in her desk drawer. Something about physically signing her name felt more appropriate, more real than clicking a button. As she picked up the pen, she realized that this moment was about more than just her career. It was about reclaiming her identity, about proving to herself that she was more than just an employee number or a position title. The pen hovered above the paper, its tip casting a tiny shadow across the final line of her resignation letter. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's journey. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision settle into place like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking together. Her fingers tightened around the pen as she prepared to make the movement that would change everything. Just as she began to apply pressure to the paper, a soft knock at the doorframe startled her. Standing there was Mr. Thompson, her boss, looking unusually uncertain despite his tailored suit and practiced executive demeanor. His presence froze her in place, the pen suspended mid-air, as he stepped into her workspace with an expression that suggested he knew exactly what she had been about to do. "Emma," Mr. Thompson began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "do you have a moment?" He didn't wait for her response before pulling up a chair and sitting across from her desk. His eyes flickered to the resignation letter on her screen, then quickly away, as if he were trying to avoid confirming what he already suspected. Emma's heart raced, but she forced herself to remain composed. She set the pen down carefully, her fingers brushing against the cool metal surface of her desk. "Of course," she said, her tone measured despite the storm brewing inside her. "What can I do for you?" Mr. Thompson leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. For a man who usually exuded confidence, he looked unusually uneasy. "I wanted to talk to you about today's announcement," he began, his gaze fixed somewhere over her shoulder rather than meeting her eyes. "I imagine it came as, well, a bit of a shock." "A shock," Emma repeated, her voice steady despite the sarcasm edging into it. "That's one way to put it." He winced slightly at her tone but pressed on. "Look, Emma, I know this decision might not seem fair from your perspective." "Not fair." The words slipped out before she could stop them, sharp and biting. "Not fair? You promoted someone who spends more time in the break room than at his desk. Someone who couldn't even meet half the deadlines I had to cover for him. And now you're telling me this isn't fair." Her boss held up a hand, as if to physically ward off her rising anger. "I understand how you feel, believe me. But there are factors here that you may not be aware of." Emma crossed her arms tightly over her chest, her jaw clenched. "Then enlighten me. What possible factor could justify passing over someone who has given 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears for this company?" Mr. Thompson sighed heavily, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's complicated, Emma. Michael has connections, relationships with clients and stakeholders that we need right now. His promotion wasn't just about performance, it was strategic. We're facing challenges in retaining key accounts, and his ability to navigate those relationships gives us an edge." "So what you're saying," Emma said slowly, her voice dangerously calm, "is that my hard work means nothing compared to schmoozing clients over golf games or happy hours." "That's not what I'm saying at all." Mr. Thompson protested, finally meeting her eyes. "Your contributions are invaluable, Emma. You've been the backbone of this team for years. But sometimes, leadership requires making difficult decisions, ones that don't always align with individual merit." The words stung more than she expected. Not because they were surprising, but because they confirmed everything she had feared, that no matter how much effort she poured into her work, it would never outweigh the politics of the corporate world. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of her desk. "And yet," she said quietly, "you expect me to stay here. To keep working under these conditions. To watch while others climb the ladder based on strategy, rather than substance." Mr. Thompson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Emma, I know this situation is frustrating. But I also know your potential. I want to see you succeed, not just within this company, but beyond it. This doesn't have to be the end of the road for you here." She raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? Because it sure feels like it." "I mean it," he insisted. "There's another opportunity coming up, a new division we're launching next quarter. It's still in its early stages, but I'd like you to consider leading it. Think of it as a fresh start, a chance to build something entirely new without the baggage of old hierarchies. For a moment, Emma felt a flicker of hope. The idea of starting something from scratch, of creating something meaningful, was undeniably appealing. But skepticism quickly drowned out the initial excitement. Was this just another empty promise? Another attempt to placate her until the next round of promotions went to someone else? "You're offering me this position now," she said slowly, "after I've already written my resignation letter. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" Mr. Thompson winced again, clearly uncomfortable with the truth of her statement. "I admit, I should have approached you sooner. But when I saw your draft earlier today, it made me realize how much we stand to lose if you walk away. You deserve better than how things have played out so far, and I want to make that right." Emma studied him carefully, searching for any sign of insincerity. His expression was earnest, almost desperate, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this offer was less about recognizing her value and more about damage control. Still, the seed of possibility had been planted, and she found herself weighing her options. If she stayed, she would have the chance to prove herself in a new role, one where her efforts couldn't be overshadowed by office politics. On the other hand, leaving meant freedom. Freedom from the constraints of a system that seemed determined to hold her back, freedom to pursue her own dreams instead of someone else's agenda. The thought of walking away was terrifying, but also exhilarating in a way she hadn't felt in years. "What makes you think I haven't already decided?" she asked finally, her voice soft but resolute. Mr. Thompson hesitated, his shoulders slumping slightly as though bracing himself for her answer. "Because I know you, Emma. You're too passionate, too driven, to give up without exploring every option. And deep down, I think you still care about this company, even if it hasn't treated you the way you deserve." His words struck a chord, stirring conflicting emotions within her. Part of her wanted to lash out, to reject his offer outright and storm out of the office with her head held high. But another part, a quieter, more cautious part, wondered if this might be the opportunity she had been waiting for. A chance to rewrite her story, to take control of her career on her own terms. As silence stretched between them, Emma glanced back at her resignation letter, still glowing faintly on her computer screen. The final line awaited her signature, taunting her with its simplicity. All she had to do was click send, and she could leave this chapter behind forever. Yet the weight of Mr. Thompson's proposal lingered in the air, forcing her to confront the reality that walking away wouldn't solve everything. Finally she spoke, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Let's say I agree to hear you out. What exactly does this new role entail? And how do I know this isn't just another empty promise?" Relief washed over Mr. Thompson's face, though he masked it quickly with professionalism. "It's a project management position overseeing the development of our sustainability initiatives. Full autonomy, direct access to senior leadership, and the resources you'll need to make it succeed. No interference, no favoritism, just you and your vision." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Sustainability initiatives. That was something she had always cared deeply about, something she had championed in smaller ways during her time at the company. The irony wasn't lost on her that the very thing she had been fighting for, a chance to lead meaningful work, was now being dangled in front of her like a lifeline. But the question remained, could she trust him? Could she trust herself to stay in a place that had repeatedly disappointed her? As she sat there, torn between two vastly different futures, the city lights outside her window continued to twinkle, indifferent to the life-altering decision unfolding beneath them. Without realizing it, her hand drifted toward the pen once more. Emma stared at the pen in her hand, its weight suddenly feeling heavier than before. The city lights beyond her window seemed to pulse with possibility, each one a reminder of the choices before her. She glanced at Mr. Thompson, who sat quietly, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. For the first time, she saw vulnerability in him, not the polished executive she was used to, but a man who truly understood what he stood to lose if she walked away. Taking a deep breath, Emma leaned back in her chair, letting her thoughts settle. "If I agree to this," she began slowly, choosing her words carefully, "there are conditions. Non-negotiable ones." Mr. Thompson nodded earnestly. "Of course. Name them." "First," Emma said firmly, "I want complete transparency about how decisions are made moving forward. No more backdoor deals or favoritism. If I'm leading this initiative, my authority has to be respected, not just by my team, but by everyone above me as well." He didn't hesitate. "Done. You'll have full autonomy, and I'll personally ensure that your role is recognized across all levels of leadership. Second, she continued, her voice gaining strength, I need a clear timeline for milestones and deliverables. I don't want vague promises, I need measurable goals so we can track progress and hold each other accountable. Absolutely, Mr. Thompson agreed. We'll work together on setting those benchmarks. In fact, I'd like you to present your vision to the board within 2 weeks. They're eager to see what you can bring to the table. Emma raised an eyebrow skeptically. And Michael? Is he going to interfere? Her boss shook his head decisively. This project is yours, Emma. Michael's responsibilities will remain separate from yours. There won't be any overlap unless you choose it. For a moment, Emma considered pressing further, but something in his tone told her he meant every word. Perhaps it was desperation, perhaps genuine regret, but either way, she felt a flicker of trust returning. Still, she had one final demand. Lastly, she said, meeting his gaze squarely, if this doesn't work out, if I find myself stuck in the same patterns of being overlooked or undervalued, I reserve the right to leave without backlash. No strings attached. Mr. Thompson hesitated briefly, then extended his hand across the desk. You have my word, Emma. This is your chance to shine, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure you succeed. She stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment, weighing the risks and rewards. Then, with a steadying breath, she reached out and shook it. The gesture felt symbolic, a bridge between the pain of the past and the promise of the future. Over the next few weeks, Emma threw herself into the sustainability initiative with a passion that surprised even herself. With full autonomy and support from senior leadership, she assembled a diverse team of talented individuals, many of whom had been overlooked in the company's traditional hierarchy. Together, they brainstormed innovative solutions, leveraging technology and community partnerships to create a program that not only reduced the company's carbon footprint but also gave back to local neighborhoods. Her presentation to the board was nothing short of electrifying. Armed with data, visuals, and heartfelt stories from affected communities, Emma painted a vivid picture of what their company could achieve if they embraced meaningful change. By the end of her pitch, the room erupted in applause, a rare occurrence in the typically stoic boardroom. As the months passed, the initiative gained momentum, earning accolades both within the company and beyond. News outlets praised the firm for its bold step toward sustainability, and employees rallied around Emma's leadership, inspired by her vision and determination. Even Michael, once her biggest source of frustration, approached her one day with genuine admiration. I never thought I'd say this, he admitted sheepishly, but you've really turned things around here. People look up to you now, me included. Emma smiled, feeling a sense of vindication she hadn't anticipated. It's not about me, she replied. It's about doing work that matters. That's what people respond to. By the time the first anniversary of the initiative rolled around, the results spoke for themselves: reduced emissions, increased employee engagement, and a surge in positive public perception. At the celebratory dinner held in her honor, Mr. Thompson raised a glass to toast her achievements. To Emma, he said, his voice filled with pride, who reminded us all what true leadership looks like. Thank you for staying when we needed you most, and for showing us the way forward. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues, friends, and mentors. For so long, she had doubted her place in the corporate world, wondering if hard work would ever be enough. But now, standing at the center of something she had built from the ground up, she realized that success wasn't just about recognition, it was about impact. As the evening drew to a close, Emma stepped outside into the cool night air, gazing up at the glittering city skyline. The resignation letter she had written that fateful day remained unsent, tucked away in a forgotten folder on her computer. Instead, she had chosen a different path, one that led to growth, fulfillment, and a legacy she could be proud of. In that moment, Emma knew she had made the right decision. Not because it was easy, but because it forced her to confront her fears, challenge the status quo, and ultimately, redefine what success meant to her. And as she walked home under the stars, she couldn't help but smile, knowing that her journey was only just beginning.